Elias Crow had lived alone on the edge of Dust Ridge for nearly 10 silent years, tucked away in a valley where the wind moved like a whisper through the ponderosa. Pines and the mountains stood like old guardians, watching over his cabin. Folks in town called him the loner rancher, a man who kept to himself, spoke little, and rode into town only when he needed salt, kerosene, or a spool of twine. Children whispered he had a haunted past, while grown men claimed he'd once been deadly with a rifle. Though no one alive had seen him draw, most people believed nothing interesting ever happened out by his lonely stretch of land until the afternoon when the Red Viper Gang thundered into Dust Ridge and brought with them a storm of trouble that would eventually lead them straight to Elias's quiet cabin. It began when Marshal Harlan Winters arrested one of their members for robbing the late-night mail coach, a scrawny outlaw with a greasy beard and a mouth foul enough to sour milk. The Red Vipers didn't take kindly to the arrest. They threatened the marshal, threatened the town, and then, when Winters stood firm, they rode around asking about the best hideouts and quiet places where no law dared step. And that's when somebody, nobody knows who, made the mistake of mentioning Elias. Crow, loner, lives miles out. Keeps to himself, they said. Probably won't cause trouble. That was all the gang needed. By sunset, 8 riders were making their way over the ridge toward Elias's land, dust trailing behind them like smoke from a brush fire. Meanwhile, Elias was repairing a broken fence rail, unaware of the storm heading straight for him. His dog, Coda, a tan and white mutt with wolfish ears, kept looking toward the horizon and whined as if sensing danger. Elias paused, squinting toward the ridge, but he saw nothing except the gold-washed sky. Still, something felt wrong. He'd learned long ago to trust that feeling. He walked back to his cabin, placing a hand on the carved wooden mark hanging beside his door, a swirling crescent with 3 slashes. The Cherokee tribe symbol, the mark of his mother's bloodline. He touched it not out of fear but remembrance. He hadn't used that heritage in a long while, but the memory of it remained. Meanwhile, the Red Vipers were arguing about how they'd borrow the rancher's land and use it to hide out. Their leader, Jax Carver, was a ruthless man with a scar over his left eye and a grin that promised nothing but wickedness. When the gang arrived on Elias's property, they didn't sneak. They stormed in like thunder, shooting into the air, cursing, laughing. Elias walked out slowly, hands steady, eyes calm like deep water. "That's far enough," he said. Jack spat. "Move aside, old man. We're taking this place for a while." Elias didn't argue. "This is my home," he replied simply. "You can leave now or stay and regret it." The gang burst into laughter. One man aimed his gun casually at Elias's porch. In that moment, the sun dipped.
Behind a cloud the world dimmed, and a strange quiet settled, one Coda growled at. The outlaw fired, blowing apart a wooden column. Elias didn't flinch, but he did step backward toward his door. Jock smirked. Thought so. But when Elias reached the door and placed his hand on the wooden plaque again, the gang fell silent. One by one, their mocking smirks faded as they noticed the carving, the Cherokee mark. Jux's face drained of color. "Hold up, boys," he whispered, leaning closer. "That mark, you know what that is?" One of his men muttered. "Looks like some kind of tribal nonsense." Jock shook his head. "No, that's the Cherokee war crest. My pa used to tell me stories about men blessed by old spirits, protectors, warriors who fought like ghosts in the trees." Several outlaws exchanged nervous glances. Elias remained silent, but his stillness alone seemed to press on them like a weight. "This ain't good," murmured another outlaw. "We don't want trouble with folks connected to that." Jock swallowed hard. The wind picked up, whistling through the pines like an ancestral voice. One outlaw whispered, "We leave?" Another answered, "We best." But Jock, desperate to save his pride, barked, "He's just a man-tribe or not. Don't beat children." He fired again, grazing the cabin wall. The sound echoed. Elias looked down, not at the bullet hole, but at his reflection in the gang leader's eyes. Something inside him, something old and long buried, stirred awake. "I warned you," he said softly. And suddenly everything changed. Coda lunged toward the left side, pulling a rope Elias had set years ago for emergencies and old hunting. Trap system passed down from his mother's family. Logs swung, dust erupted, and chaos exploded across the yard. Elias didn't even reach for a rifle, so he didn't need one. He moved with calm, precise instinct, using every inch of land he knew better than his own heartbeat. The gang scattered, tripping over hidden snares, falling into shallow pits, dodging swinging branches. Elias moved like a phantom. His ancestors had taught him that the land itself was a weapon if a man respected it. Within minutes, 3 outlaws were down. 2 were tangled, 1 was fleeing, and only Jocks remained standing, pale, shaken, humiliated. "What are you?" Jocks whispered. Elias stepped forward. "A man who warned you," he replied. "Now leave this land." Before the spirits finished what I started, Jocks didn't need another word. He ran, but the trouble wasn't over. As the night fell, Elias knew they'd return with more men. With rage, with vengeance. He stood outside his cabin, touched the Cherokee mark one more time, and whispered a promise to the wind. "I won't run again, Mother. Not this time." And deep in the distance, like thunder rolling across the mountains, the sound of dozens of horses answered. Night draped itself over Dust Ridge like a dark blanket stitched with stars, and Elias Crow stood at the edge of his porch with the same stillness as the mountains behind him. He knew the Red Viper Gang would come again, this time with fury, with reinforcements and with enough firepower to burn half the valley. Men driven by humiliation and fear were the most dangerous kind. They'd come not only to reclaim their pride, but to erase anything that reminded them of their earlier cowardice. As the wind whispered through the pines, Coda perked his ears, and Elias could feel it in his bones. The earth trembled, faintly. Horses, many. That gang wasn't sneaking this time. They wanted him to hear them coming, wanted him to feel the doom rolling toward him like a dark tide. Elias walked calmly back inside, lighting a single oil lamp. The warm glow illuminated the wooden walls, the shelf of old keepsakes from his mother, hand-woven bracelets, a carved wooden flute, and a folded piece of buckskin with symbols painted across it. He touched it for strength. He was not just a loner rancher. He was the son of a Cherokee warrior and a frontiersman father who'd died protecting their land. He had tried to escape the violence of his childhood by retreating into quiet solitude, but tonight reminded him that peace was sometimes a battle fought long before dawn. The rumble of horses grew louder. Elias grabbed only 3 things: his old hunting bow carved by his mother, a coil of rope, and the courage of his ancestors. He stepped outside and whispered, "Guide my hands." Then the first torch appeared over the ridge, followed by another, then another, until nearly 24 torches painted the night with fiery streaks. The Red Vipers had come in full force. Jocks Carver rode in front, jaw clenched, fury blazing across his scarred face. "Crow," he shouted, "you embarrassed us? Tonight we settle it." Elias didn't answer. The gang spread out, circling his land like wolves tightening their ring around prey. Torches cast orange light over the cabin and the Cherokee mark above the door. Some outlaws looked uneasy. "You sure this is smart?" one muttered. Jocks snapped, "Shut up! Spirits or not, he bleeds like any man." But Elias was not afraid. He walked slowly toward them, bow in hand, but lowered. "This is your last chance," he said calmly. "Leave this land. I don't seek war, but I won't run from it." Jocks spat, flame-bright spit into the dirt. "Boys, burn it all." The gang surged forward. But the moment they crossed the line of pine stakes Elias had placed earlier, the ground shifted. A cry rang out as one outlaw fell into a trap pit. Elias had dug during the afternoon deep, camouflaged, lined with thick brush. Another was thrown from his horse when it tripped on a hidden tension wire. Chaos rippled outward. Elias moved like wind, firing arrows that struck with precision, not killing, but disabling, disarming, forcing the attackers to drop weapons or flee. He didn't want blood. He wanted the message to be clear. This land was protected.